What is poppin', my whole homies? It is me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show. Yo, how is it already the finale of Rick and Morty Season 7, y'all? Time sure does fly when life keeps exposing you to horrors beyond human comprehension, huh? But that's 2023 for you. But anyways, thanks for coming on down to this breakdown of this super deep and dark finale, y'all. There is a whole lot to talk about here, so let's just jump into this thing. But before we do, give this video a like, because it really helps Paul and I with making more content for you guys. Because the algorithm lets us linger more when you hit that finger more, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, the episode starts with Richard and Mortimer walking through a haunted house of actual horrors that would cause my ass to drop a crappie in my khakis. Like, I can't even do haunted houses in real life without screaming like a hyena in labor, so the fact that these two are so unfazed by all of these actual abominations surrounded by unborn fetus eyeball trees is a true testament to just how unfeeling towards everything Rick and Morty have become, which very much serves as an extension of this season's trend of showing us just how much Rick's chaotic influence on Morty's life has severely warped Morty's mind. Like how Morty told Rick that his school felt like they had to phone Homeland Security after doing a psych eval on Morty in episode 9's Mort Ragnarok. And when we got to see the origins of an apathetic evil Morty in episode 5's Unmortricken. Anyways, as Rick and Morty begin to walk through the Carnival of Nightmares, we can see this creepy yellow Jack-in-the-Box ride next to what looks like a clown lady happily hanging over a dunk tank full of knives while a crowd of people, including a small alien child and an interspecies human-alien couple, all gather around to watch a creepy clown lady potentially die. But then again, clowns are creepy as shit, so I totally get it, to be honest. But anyways, amongst that crowd is of course everyone's favorite fear hole dealer, played excellently by actor extraordinaire Liev Schreiber. And holy shit, does this man put in quite a performance in this episode. Like, that monologue between him and Morty about how all happiness in our lives will eventually end was a stunner and a bummer at the same damn time. And it's probably a scene that I'm going to be thinking about for a long while. But anyways, our editor Matt pointed out to me that this fear hole dealer guy appears to be modeled after Rod Sterling from the Twilight Zone, which I thought was a really nice touch. But anyways, after this mysterious man promises Rick and Morty the scare of their lifetimes, they all head to the scariest place of all time, a Denny's late at night. Ooh! And although most Denny's have disgusting toilet holes on account of, the Denny's, this Denny's is different because one of their toilet holes is a hole that manifests your deepest fears. Rick and Morty's parody of the Mirror Cave hole from Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, a Star Wars movie that everyone universally loved and nobody has ever overreacted to whatsoever. In The Last Jedi, on Luke's antisocial planet of H2, there is a subterranean cave that is strong with the dark side of the Force, and it's also a cave that manifests your greatest fear, much like that woodsy cave area on the planet Dagobah that Luke Skywalker journeys into when he experienced that vision of himself as Darth Vader, representing his fear of falling to the dark side. In The Last Jedi, the mirror inside of the hole on H2 shows Rey that her greatest fear was being alone and that she'll never find her parents alive, as represented by her being disappointed to find only herself. Like, I really love how this episode uses Star Wars as a basis for the whole story, because Star Wars as a whole has always been a story about hope versus fear, which is why Luke Skywalker famously tells Rey that confronting fear is the destiny of a Jedi. In Star Wars, the greatest of Jedi are always put on a path where they are forced to confront their worst fears, and it's only when they overcome being controlled by those fears that they truly become a real Jedi. Like how Luke rejected the dark side after he refused to kill his father and the Emperor in fear, or how Ahsoka recently rejected her fear of her former master's dark side by remembering all the good things that Anakin taught her before his own fear of losing Padme led him astray. Morty being forced to confront his fear of being seen as replaceable by his grandpa Rick is significant because that fear is precisely what sent evil Morty to his own dark side path. Like, evil Morty snapped after Rick rejected to give a damn about Morty's concerns about being treated with respect. Like, Rick straight up told Morty that he did not care whether or not he tagged along with him on his adventures as a sidekick after Morty complained about being shoved through yet another alien ass on yet another quest for yet another score of cosmic energy crystals. That fear became real for that version of Morty. And so that Morty responded by letting his fear turn to hate, sending that Morty's ass tumbling towards the evil Morty dark side. But anyways, I also found it hilarious how the stall with the fear hole in it also had one of those old TV VHS carts that teachers used to roll out into classrooms when they were hungover and didn't feel like teaching for that day. Like, trust me, nothing compares to watching Tarzan in a dark classroom in the 90s with all your classmates instead of actually learning. Like, that shit ruled, man. Then, when Rick and Morty watched the bathroom fear hole tutorial, the VHS tape transitions to a previously recorded Mountain Dew commercial featuring the infamously cruel former leader of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, who was killed in 2011 by his own people. However, right before that transition happens, you can see the eyes of the fear hole salesman turn pitch black, which is definitely on my personal list of top 10 things that I do not want to see while my hand is on my wiener at the urinal. If I see a man with dark eyes while I'm trying to make liquid, I'm not going to be able to go. Then after Morty jumps into the hole like a lunatic, both Morty and fake Rick shit their pants from the experience and head back home to their family watching the Cake or Fake show on interdimensional cable, a show parody on the fake cake internet trend that we first learned was among Rick's favorite shows back when Morty became Summer's Quado in episode 7 of this season. But in this episode, it looks like we have a literal piece of cake or pie tied up instead of a human person, which is good. It's better to not have humans cut open for entertainment, ideally. But that is of course interrupted by a half-burned and dying younger Rick who tells the Sanchez family that he managed to save his version of Diane from Rick Prime's garage grenade. Anyways, after Rick and Morty both agree that they're still in the fear hole, Rick immediately accuses Morty of being afraid of not being needed by Rick if his wife ever came back into the picture, which of course ends up being pretty spot on in the end. But then, in order to get more data, fear hole Rick decides to get closer with Diane and take the entire family out for ice cream. While Beth and Diane compare their notes about Rick, they both remark about how much Rick hates time travel and how he thinks it's the Long Island iced tea of science fiction, which is something that Rick has brought up before in the past. But after Rick upsets Diane by telling her that everybody in this fear hole reality is just like a non-playable character in a video game, he apologizes to her by sending a robot with breakfast to her door, with that robot quickly having an existential crisis and revealing that Rick also put memories of a human child inside of it, which is super messed up. But this isn't the first time one of Rick's robots has had an existential crisis like that, with one of the funniest and earliest examples of that being, of course, the robot that freaks out at the realization that the only reason it was made was to pass butter around to the Sanchez family. But soon after this, we learn that Rick and Diane met after Rick was commissioned to build a law enforcement drone for the federal government in the past. So I think that the implication here is that Diane herself used to be a federal agent of some sort. Then later on, when Rick and Diane go drinking after alienating Morty at the park, we can see that the alien bar that they go to was placing bets on who could drink the most, with Rick receiving 5 votes, Diane 3, an alien named Slark getting 10, and an alien named Glar getting the most votes with 15. It was honestly so great to see Rick and Diane in a loving relationship after never really seeing anything about their relationship over these past 7 seasons of Rick and Morty. But it was equally just as sad to see Rick have to confront his fear of his happiness with Diane ending by choosing to save Morty instead of eating tacos with Diane in more ways than one, if you know what I mean. I'm an idiot. But I found their conversation on how different the TV show Lost ended in each of their universes to be quite hilarious. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. When Morty sees that Rick looks like he's about to die from the hole feeding on his fear of happiness, Morty tries to do as many things as he can in order to induce fearful scenarios and hopefully break that simulation. With the first thing that Morty does being marching straight to his school with a well thought out list of what he loves about Jessica the most on a piece of notebook paper. And knowing Morty, that list probably took that squeaky voiced child hours to make. But anyways, Morty's top 4 things that he loves about Jessica are apparently the smell of her gym shoes, the way that she says succulent, that Jessica's name means foresight in Hebrew, and how Jessica's perfect skin makes his wiener hurt, which is a little bit too much honesty. But this of course causes everyone but Jessica to laugh, with Jessica even appearing to look at Morty with a super concerned look on her face. So either Jessica felt really bad for Morty in that moment and thought the gesture was somewhat sweet, or more likely, Jessica just had PE later on that day and didn't know where to hide her smelly shoes from that yellow-shirted freak Mortimer. But anyways, Morty then falls flat on his face in front of his schoolmates in front of a parody of 7-Eleven before signing up for his school play's production of the 1997 play 3 Days of Rain by Richard Greenberg, a play that Morty performs badly in the nude. Like the dude's pee-pee was out. Embarrassing. Couldn't be me. But then Rick, of course, jumps onto the stage to save his grandson with a rap battle, just like they did in Season 2, Episode 5's Get Swifty. But after they both jump through several layers of fears, one of the final layers of fears Morty has to go through is his fear of becoming just like his pathetic papa, Jerry, which causes him to live his entire adult life in this fear hole. We even get to see Morty turn into the 26-year-old version of Morty that we saw get created in the Rebuild the Morty store at the Citadel in Season 5, Episode 10's Rick Mirai Jack. And I also found that little U-tow moving van that adult Morty rides in to be stupidly hilarious as well. Like the U-tow is literally just a toe as the mascot saying, "I tow," which are the kinds of stupid ass jokes and puns that your boy lives for. But after Morty finally realizes that his true fear is being seen as insignificant to his grandfather, he finally emerges out of the real hole, with the episode ending with a super sweet moment of Rick putting his grandson's photo on the wall of brave souls who would boldly go into the hole. But after an episode about a dark fear hole, we catch up with a poopy butthole in the post-credits scene. Because since this is Rick and Morty, a season cannot end without a State of the Union with our favorite top-hatted man. A man whose life has continued to crumble due to Rick causing him to lose his job, marriage, and family throughout the series. Mr. PB uses one of Rick's portal guns to knock out a variant of himself before tossing that variant and his portal gun inside of the portal to replace him in that universe. Also, Mr. Poopy Butthole can be happy again, which is very much like Rick did with multiple versions of his family throughout the series. But what's super crazy about this ending is, of course, that final look of suspicion and malice that Mrs. Poopy Butthole has about her husband. And while it can be assumed that she just suspects that her husband was just replaced by another copy of her husband, I think another implication could be that the variant of Mr. Poopy Butthole that was native to this universe was someone that Mrs. Poopy Butthole grew to deeply resent, possibly due to that Mr. Poopy Butthole being a more evil version of our Mr. Poopy Butthole. What am I saying? What are these sentences that I'm saying? I don't know. God, I'm 31. A potentially darker version of Mr. Poopy Butthole that our Mr. Poopy Butthole just sent to Rick and Morty's Parmesian universe. But that is all just a theory, of course, but it would be so dope to see this as a setup for a potential evil Mr. Poopy Butthole in the future. But anyways, that is it for this breakdown of the Season 7 finale of Rick and Morty. Thank you guys so much for watching all these videos, y'all. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me. You can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or wherever I am on the internet, including the Guardians of the Galaxy podcast that you can find on YouTube. But most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube and make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that we upload. And again, hit that like button if you like the video. Always helps with the channel. But yeah, thanks again for watching. You guys are amazing, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.